Ladies and gentlemen, it's the CBSI Bolo Show! Now sit back and relax as Brian and Jack recap the first appearances, reader buzz, and hottest variants in comic books releasing each and every week. Coming to you from an unidentified command center, here's your host, Brian Wood!
Welcome everyone to the CBSI Bolo Show. We have a great show planned for you tonight as we recap the week's hottest comic books and the CBSI Bolo list. I'm your host Brian Wood, and I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us on the Simpleman's Comic YouTube channel. And for those watching or listening to the replay, I want to thank you as well. With me as always is my co-host Jack DeMeo, aka Mr. Bolo. How's your week been, Jack?
We don't do that here on the Bolo Show. It's been a rough week. It's been a long one between work, family stuff, everything else, the responsibilities here with CBSI and Simpleman's Comics. But this is my favorite part of the week. This is the part where we get to come here and just kind of unwind, drop those hot takes, talk comics, and have a great time in the chat. So I'm excited for tonight.
Right. So we're got a little bit of freeze on there. I'm going to see if I can get that fixed real quick. And let's go. Little technical issues.
Freeze framing on them?
Yeah, I got your camera froze for some reason. There we go. Got you back.
Oh.
All right.
Shout out everybody rolling in the chat.
And
Is Jack broadcasting this from his bathroom? Right? Might as well be, right? I should be the next Mr. Freeze. I got the bald head to do it.
Yeah.
I can at least do it as well as Arnold Schwarzenegger. At least.
So yeah, he was on the pot, but we're good. Let us know now we got that fixed. Also, let us know audio video issues that outside of Mr. Freeze we just got fixed going on. But yeah, like he said, we want to welcome everyone coming to the chat right now. We're only a couple minutes late, but all for good reason. Want to make sure we're trying to provide the best production possible. But there's some hiccups along the way, and that's just what you get with going live sometimes. But we do want to say and give a big thank you to the show does have our sponsor, and that is Nick Dwortman at Slabbed Heroes. If you're looking for modern, guaranteed 9/8 at a great price with great service, make sure you check out slabbedheroes.com. I've ordered some comics from him. I got some I just ordered recently and can't be more happier. And if you sell comics yourself, he gives you plenty of bubble wrap so you can reuse it.
Ain't that the truth?
Yes, it's definitely bulletproof packaging. But before we also get into the weekly recap, I wanted to bring up something new here. This is always we have the Bolo box, which is something that's been added to. Of course, you weren't aware, I do have a Patreon. People have been asking about some of this. I'm one of those people that don't like talking about money very often, but some of the patrons said I should talk about it. So here we are. Patreon.com/SimpleMansComics. There's a couple tiers there, as low as $1, all the way up to, we have a $20 Bolo box, which is going to be curated Bolo picks from Jack DeMeo, myself, and we also have a premium Bolo box, which is a little bit more higher tier. They are limited. There's a certain amount of slots open. We want to keep those slots exclusive so that we can actually provide good comic books to you guys and keep that price low and not sit there and we're not going to give you dollar bin fodder. These are actually going to be good books, Bolo books. So if you're interested, make sure you go to patreon.com, Simpleman's Comics, and also check out the other tiers. I'd be honored anyway, you guys, if you choose to help. If you're not, either way, I hate talking about money, so I just want to make sure that I lost Jack again. But we will get him on here. Good Lord. What is going on? Jack, where'd you go? Yeah. I'm going to see if I can get Jack back real quick. Maybe. Here we go. Jack found the bathroom. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I was like, Jack, where'd you go? All of a sudden, I saw you drop off.
I don't know where this video better come in now. But all of a sudden, my audio went out, and I could hear you out of my speakers in the computer, but it was like grainy. So I tried to mess with it, and somehow I think I shut everything down. So, but I heard you do an excellent sales pitch for the Bolo box. So
No, it was horrible. Like I said, I'm the worst, man. I don't like talking about. I always feel, yeah, that's just not me. But it's there, and we want to offer it up to people. So patreon.com/Simplemans, or if you just go to patreon.com and search Simpleman's Comics. Be honored if you check out the page. And if you're interested in one of those, they're definitely there. Like I said, we do have it limited, and hopefully we don't lose Jack during this again to totally distract me once more. But it's there, and I'd be honored if you guys checked it out. And with that, we're going to go into the Bolo rewind for last week. He went the way of Swamp Thing.
Oh, man.
But, so, first up on the recap this week, we'll just go out and say it. We didn't notice a lot of movers on the aftermarket. Isn't that correct, Jack?
Yeah, there really wasn't. There wasn't a ton of books popping off on the secondary market from last week. At least not early on. Maybe more of a buy and hold week.
Right. But one thing that did have some buzz around it, which one of my favorite covers from last week, was the She Said Destroy, the homage cover from Saga. So, want to give a little bit of recap on this one, Jack?
Yeah. So this was one of the books that kicked off Vault's kind of move towards modern homage covers, which we've really talked about we like because, you start to see the same redundant homages coming through and through. And if you're not familiar, the Vault Vintage series started with the second printing of the Savage Shores and has kind of really developed into their signature line. They now do retailer exclusive variants, and of course we've done one with Queen of Bad Dreams #1 available at comicbookinvest.com. Hit the variants tab and check that out. And it's really become the go-to cover. I think most people who are hitting LCSs picking up these Vault #1s, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that Vault Vintage variant. And I will put a pump out there. Be on the lookout for upcoming Indie Spotlight Series show that we just filmed last night. It's the reason why we missed the Hot and Cold premiere. Shout out to everybody who was in the premiere for the Hot and Cold show right here on Simpleman's Comics last night. We're sorry we missed the premiere. We don't want to do that anymore. We're going to rearrange our schedule to make sure that doesn't happen. But we filmed a great episode with Adrian and Damian Wassel, from the founders of Vault Comics. And we talk Vault Vintage. We get into it. And it is the first part in a series with them. So be on the lookout for that episode. That is coming soon, as well as an episode coming soon with James Hake from Scout Comics. So we've got a lot on the way from Simpleman's Comics.
Right. So next book we had on the recap for this past week, most of these are still signed in with the reader buzz, but Daredevil #6, another great issue. I really enjoyed it. I'm not going to go too in-depth on it because everyone probably knows that I'm not the best at comic book reviews, but
I'm going to make you do one later, though.
I know, I'm going to take
one. I have one for you.
But, yeah, so did you get a chance to read this, Jack? I mean, what do you think about Daredevil so far? Or, I mean, what's the buzz around it?
I did. I enjoyed it. But I think that, I don't know. I don't want to say, like, it's been oversold to me. But it's the first issue in an arc. So I'm in. I'm in on this arc. I'm excited. I can't wait to see where it's going to go. But I have high expectations, I'll tell you. All of you Daredevil, Zdarsky, people who have been out there championing the series, you have sold this series to me very highly, so I'm expecting greatness. But I think a lot of people jumped on board with this one too. So it's another one that's not really taken off in the secondary market, but it's selling out at retailer level. We're seeing a lot of retailers are reporting that more and more readers are coming into stores asking for this book, and I think that's a good thing. The Hidden Gem variant may not be doing a ton on the secondary market. I honestly don't think a lot of the variants from this series are really the way to go if you're getting into the series, because I think that the true value in this Daredevil series is with readers. So it's a lot like Immortal Hulk, where the true money in Immortal Hulk is those cover A Ross covers. And I think you're going to see the same coming with these cover A. What's it, Brian Tedesco?
Yeah, Tedesco's been doing the regular covers, and then Cicchetto's on interiors, and he's also been doing the second prints.
And those second prints have been fabulous. So
Yeah.
if it was me, that's what I would put my money into, is some of those, early issues. Like I said, stack that long box or short box with those early Daredevil runs and get ready to set that up at a show this summer above her price, and I think he'll do very well.
Right. And then wrapping up the replay from last week, we have your long-term play, which was the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers number 39.
Yeah, and I did some tracking on this one and talk about kind of erratic, which is what you get with kind of this small press. It's hard to call Boom small press because they're a pretty big company, but they're still an indie publisher. And so, like the 1 in 25 variant, which you see on the very far right, I saw a sale for $15 and I saw a sale for $45. So what's the true kind of going rate for the book? I see people listing it tend to be at ratio. Again, though, this is a long-term play. This is not a short-term play. The money in this is if next month's issue does what I expect it to do, and if you start to get those casual speculators, those kind of I'll jump on whatever's hot kind of FOMO speculators, if that sets in like it did with issue 25 in Power Rangers, that's when this book becomes more valuable. But go look on eBay, type this book in. You're just not going to see a ton of copies. And you're going to see a lot of the cover A's selling out, and some of the cover B's already going above cover price. And that third cover, that was like a FOC incentive where it was like last second thrown up, and dealers could order as many as they wanted, but they had kind of a short window on it. So that's another one to keep an eye out for, as it won't be incredibly available. And also remember, this is the first cover appearance of the Solar Rangers, the new team that debuted the issue before. So if you're in the stores picking up 39, you might as well pick up 38, the first appearance of the new Solar Rangers, which feature the Ranger Slayer, who is somebody that Boom is putting a lot of money behind.
Right. And then that's going to wrap up our weekly rewind from last week, taking a look back at the books from last week. Like I said, not a lot of movers. There's some other ones that might be doing better on the secondary market, but those were highlights that we saw that we wanted to kind of talk about. And we got a new subscriber to the channel. Thank you, Anthony Kelsey. Definitely appreciate that. But so now we are getting into this week, and finally the graphics are back this week. Last week they weren't working too well, but we had the CBSI Bolo list for New Comic Book Day this week. As always, we cover the first appearances, the reader buzz, the variant buzz, and then at the end, Jack will go into a long-term play. Before we get into it, I want to welcome everyone that's still strolling into the chat. We got Blue Green Artifacts, 9 Square Inches, Maximus, not that Maximus, but the Maximus. Comics Are Escapism, Shane Griffin, a lot of the same people, Caleb Comics Murphy, which is Tongue Twister, but I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat that also have YouTube channels, so make sure, as always, if you have a channel, you shout it out in the chat so people can see it, and sub it up. And with that being said, we're going to go into first appearances for the week. And there was really only 2 on the list, right? We had Justice League number 25,
right,
and then Domino Hot Shots number 4. So we'll go.
And I don't even know if that first one is really a first appearance, but we'll get into it.
Right. So the first one you had on your list was Justice League number 25.
Yes. I'm letting you naysayers start to influence me about what is and isn't a first appearance. So I don't know. Lex Luthor getting a new body, is that a first appearance? It depends on what becomes of this. If this becomes like a new version of Lex Luthor, yes, there'll be some value in this book. But speculating on that immediately, I don't know. It's not something I'm going to do. I'll put it like that. And it's just for transparency's sake. I'd rather wait and see. And we've talked about that on the show before. Like, FOMO a lot of times gets in where you feel like you got to have everything, versus I don't mind if I realize another issue or 2 down the road I got to have this book and I need to go back and chase. That's fine. Having said that, I've really enjoyed this Justice League series. It's one of the few DC series I've been reading consistently. And I'll admit, I'm not a big Justice League reader, and I'm not a big DC reader. So, you take that with a grain of salt. But I've enjoyed it. And so I think that this though plays into something I'm very bullish on, which is the Leviathan event. I really think that, I talked about this last week, Brian Michael Bendis, follow the money. I think that the Leviathan event is going to be a big deal. And I think everything that plays into the Leviathan event it kind of has solid value, and that's what this Lex situation kind of plays into. So he's looking to do what he needs to do. So I don't want to spoil too much, and also we don't really know quite yet where it's going. So I don't want to try to speculate too much. But I'm very interested in this series, and I would love to know in the chat. Did you guys check it out? What do you guys think about the importance of it? Do you think this is a first appearance worth specking on? And again, that's also why I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to bring up the saltiness. We had a comment on our Instagram page. Brian hit me up yesterday and asked me if I saw it, and I hadn't actually seen it at the time, where somebody said, you're making people spend money. But like I said, I didn't spend my money on this. This wasn't something I speculated on. And that's not the point of the Bolo list. The point of the Bolo list, again, is to let you know what other people on social media are talking about, because that helps you to gauge the popularity of an item, which helps you in determining supply and demand. It's a scouting report. It's a tool in your arsenal, not your only arsenal. So, we don't want to always bring up every negative comment that comes out, but we've heard that one before. So we always want to kind of hammer that point home for, as we enjoy new growth, which is awesome. From time to time, you get the new listeners, they come in, new readers, new followers, and then they're not familiar with why you're doing what you're doing. And there's a lot of lists out there meant to make you direct to buy this, to buy that. But again, this is a buying tool. When we put this out, also, we never thought it would reach the levels that it reached. It was really just a cool thing for Instagram, because Brian and I were just looking for content. So it's kind of become this thing, and you guys have made it what it is, which is awesome, especially the community here on Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel.
Right. And I think you can ask anyone in the chat, and everyone in the chat knows the purpose of the Bolo list. It's just some people on the outside looking in. So we also recommended, hey, if you feel that way, please check out the Bolo show and surrounding content. We think you might change your point of view. If not, thanks for checking us out either way. But rolling into the next part on the hot list this week was Domino Hot Shots number 4, correct?
Yeah, and that's another one. I'm really not familiar with this character. I haven't been reading this series, but there's been a few first appearances in this series. And I actually think we talked about this one before. This one's kind of sneaky to me, because we know they want to do something with Domino. We know that. We know they want to do like a field-driven kind of team. And then, of course, I talk about this all the time. If you're in this for pure money, then it's all about the adaptation. And now that Fox and Disney are one, anything could happen. Having said that, these type of team books, I'm also kind of on the record with my disdain for them. They're just meant to drive sales, to bring in small fan bases, put them together, and kind of eat off each individual little fan base. So they don't always maintain anything in the market. So you got to take it with a grain of salt. So this is another first appearance where I would tell you, I don't mind going back and trying to find this one later if I need to. But for right now, it's not something I'm really paying any attention to. But if somebody in the chat has read this book or is reading the series and can tell me differently and can sell me on why this is a viable character that we need to go for, by all means do so, and we will shout you out. But yeah, this is not a book that I would see a lot of spec coming out of.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't a very strong week for first appearances. We did have a Maximus ask in the chat about excuse me, about including independent comic first appearances. We have a pretty good reason why we don't really include those at times, right, Jack?
Yeah, and I've had people ask us that before, but people don't understand that the like plethora of first appearances you'd end up with. First off, you don't get the same databasing, so we would have to track it kind of ourselves. And secondly, you essentially would have to list every character in an independent book, which would then become nuts, because if you look at like a list of characters that have like appeared in, say, long-standing and long-running independent books, it is out of this world. Having said that, I do think what Brian and I have talked about is doing more kind of focus-driven content. And so we will probably work in content as maybe like, a Southern Bastards TV show gets developed. We can kind of produce some content and talk about first appearances surrounding that. As like Umbrella Academy moves into a second season, we can do that. Whether we do it via a special edition live stream Bolo show or whether we do it via pre-filmed content, I think that's definitely something we want to do, because I think there's a lot of slept on first appearances in indie comics So I get why you want to know that information. I think that would be very difficult for us to disseminate on a weekly basis. But again, that's another thing in the comments. If you guys have any ideas about how to go about doing that or any ways in which you would want that content delivered to you, let us know, and we'll see what we can do.
Right. And yeah, that was another thing. People are asking more about Patreon. We've also got questions from people asking about wanting, not just outside the show, but doing almost like a hangout or a get together where we do a bunch of people in the comic community just sit there and talk about comics. And one of the things we want to bring into that is within the Patreon, open that up to patrons where we do like a monthly hangout and just sit and everyone talk about comics and talk about what they want to do and just have a good time. We figured not because, hey, we're trying to funnel you in to get money. It's just that's the easiest way to get people that would participate. Because if you just open it up for anyone, people would come in. You would get the people you don't even probably want in there joining.
Right. Yeah, and I think you know, I had kind of logged out when Brian was talking about the Patreon. You know, when I got involved with working with Brian on the channel, that was something I kind of brought up. We talked about was like, okay, well, what can we do with the Patreon? And it's tough with Brian. He's got so much going on, but he's got to develop all these great graphics. You see, he's got to edit the heck out of me and Andy bumbling through interviews. So you know, he was kind of stretched, and we were kind of talking and developing some ideas. So there's going to be a lot we want to do with the Patreon, but it's kind of early stages. We just want to let you guys and make you guys aware that it exists, that we do have the Bolo box coming. We're gonna partner with retailers and be able to get really cool books in there that you don't get from your typical mystery box. And what we're trying to do, what Brian's getting at, is we're trying to foster a community. This isn't really a product we're out here selling. If it was a product we were just trying to sell and make profit like some other mystery boxes on the market, then we would have a website for it and we'd be doing it that way, and we'd be just selling you the box direct. We want you to be a Patreon because we want you to be up on everything going on in Simpleman's Comics. We want to be able to foster that relationship with you, like Brian said, where we can do things like have that live stream with you where we're talking in that hangout chat. Another thing I would love to do is kind of a pre-FOC order conversation where maybe for Patreons, we can go in and talk what books Brian and I are looking at pre-FOC to order. And we can I mean, that's more opinion-based, but if you guys want to hear our opinion, we'd be happy to share that with you.
Right. Like I said, he did a better job. A salesman, I am not. I just always feel bad mention anything about money. And then we got Jack, who's reconnecting again with a poor connection. So, yeah, Patreon to buy Jack better internet. But, so yeah, there's some stuff coming down the line. And also, if you're interested in joining the Patreon and you see the rewards there, if there's stuff that you guys would like to recommend or existing Patreon members, I always ask, hey, what would be stuff that would benefit you guys that would add value to it? So, by all means, let me know, and we'll get it added in there. Emiliano said, Jack dropped the mic after that. He's that 56K modem tonight, man. I tell you, he's gonna make me edit this post. Let me see if I can get him back. I need a technical difficulty screen to show on there. Now it's showing he's not even online. I'm here. I'm hiding behind the screen so you don't see me looking all flustered. $404 page for Simple Jack. sad face, Simple Jack, technical difficulties. I guess he's rebooting. Jack isn't online. Let's see if I can get him back here in just a second. There we go. You there?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna make me lose my PG-13 rating on here.
Dude, I'm telling you, somebody in my house just decided to call the cable company mid-show to call in a cable complaint, and so somehow the internet suddenly went out for a minute. So
I was like, oh my goodness.
all of a sudden the Wi-Fi was gone, and I went into panic mode. And
Yeah.
I was in the middle of a classic Mr. Bolo speech here.
I know. I was like, hey, we need Patreon for Jack's internet. But
I'm telling you, see, that's why we need it.
this is gonna be a show that people are gonna be like, hey, watch all the shows except for that like June 6th one, man. That one's freaking
Yeah.
crap. But so we're just gonna roll with it, and I'll probably, yeah, I'm gonna have to edit this in post.
Yeah. But shout out to everybody joining us live, still rocking with us.
Yeah, definitely appreciate everyone sticking with us. But so we're gonna get into this now, get back into the content, and we're gonna get into. We did first appearances, so next we got the Reader Buzz to get into. A lot of books on the Reader Buzz. Stream is crashing now. Let's go ahead and roll right into it.
But we're about to break Brian.
Yeah, I got like straight. So first up in the Reader Buzz this week we had Boogly Heads #1, right?
Yep, absolutely. And this was definitely a book that was kind of not on a lot of people's radar coming out of FOC. I didn't hear a ton of talk about it until about right before New Comic Book Day. Within the last week, there was a lot of talk about it. I'm not really sure the origin of Boogly Heads. I know there's toys. I know Gus Fink is a big Instagram celebrity. He has a huge following. And I think that really plays into why this book is doing well. And it's one of the things we talk about a lot of times on the Bolo show is you really have to respect fan bases. It may not be a fan base you're familiar with or a fan base that you are a part of, but it's why we talk about like G.I. Joes, Masters of the Universe, Transformers, things like that that have these built-in fan bases. And Boogly Head seems to have this built-in fan base as it moves into kind of a monthly distributed comic book, and it's done really, really well. It looks like people are asking $13, $12 for cover A. The variant is there's a 1 in 10 incentive is doing well. It's going above ratio. So I didn't get a chance to see if there's a lot of sales coming off the book, but it looks like cover price copies are really drying up, and it seems to be an above cover price book.
Right. Then, of course, next on the Reader Buzz list, this was a pretty big title with a lot of covers, a lot of great covers this week, and we're talking about Boom's Buffy the Vampire Slayer #5, correct?
Right, yeah, and this is another one where when it got solicited, obviously you can see from the image that Brian's got on the screen, it had kind of like a black cover because they didn't want to reveal anything. Because obviously, if you've read issue #4 last month, they brought back Angel, who also appeared in Angel #0. Excuse me, I apologize. So that's kind of been the big events of 4 and 5. There's also they've kind of debuted a couple new Slayers, a couple of the new vampires, with those Mercado variants. And like Brian said, lots of variants. The standouts to me are the 1 in 25 and the 1 in 50 Yasmin Putri variants. I really have to give it to whoever's doing like the art direction for this Buffy Boom Run, because they have really done a great job getting some top end cover artists after having Jenny Frison last month and now having Yasmin Putri. And when we interviewed Arun Singh from Boom Studios, he said there's just more to come. So I think that's something to keep an eye out for. So like Brian said, lots of covers. Definitely doing a lot of the covers are, I'd say, really nice art. Kind of still flying under the radar. A lot of people kind of still hating on the idea of Buffy spec. But again, people are looking for spec alternatives. It's tough to play in that big 2 sandbox. You're playing in the biggest sandbox in comics. There's so many people doing it. So if you're looking for an alternative, if you're looking for, again, a fan base to respect, one that's really kind of opened Brian in my eyes within the last couple weeks has really been Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Because we are two guys, 30s and 40s, who aren't your typical Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans. That isn't something that we would identify ourselves as. But we're paying attention. So definitely advocating you to at least do that. At least check it out. Pay attention to it. There may be some solid spec there. And again, I always say follow the money. Joss Whedon is gonna try to make some money off this. There's just no doubt. I just got done binge watching with my girlfriend Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and I thought it was amazing. And after watching, I know I'm super late on that one, but after watching it, I was like, even more, I was like, well, then if I was in charge of the Buffy universe, I'd be sitting here to get that Sabrina money, because there's just no way that they couldn't do that.
Yeah, every time. I'm not a fan of Buffy. I liked the movie, but I wasn't a fan of I wouldn't even say fan. I didn't really watch the TV show. Wasn't a fan of Angel, but I am liking these comics, especially since we had that interview with Arun. But it always reminds me, years ago, I'm talking like probably mid-late 90s, MTV had that Wanna Be a VJ contest, and there was that Wanna Be a VJ guy named Jesse that was on there. And they did like a promo where he's like, I don't know who Buffy is, but I love Slayer. So every time I hear it, that's what it reminds me of.
That's one of those guys I'm scared to Google to see if he's still alive.
Yeah. But, so, of course, moving on to the next in the Reader Buzz section was Category 0. This was from Scout Comics, right? And I want to give a shout out. Sarah's in the chat. Sarah Hymo. She's also one of the newest Patreon members. She gave a good bolo herself that she put it out there that Scout actually has an ash can of this on their site if anyone's interested in getting that. So that's a good bolo as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback off that and say shout out to Sarah. Since she's joined the Bolo Nation Simpleman's Comics community, she has been kind of an exceptional member, really kind of added a lot to the community. She jumps on the Facebook, added a lot of comments on other people's posts. And we always talk about, like, we pay attention to that stuff. We notice that stuff. So shout out to Sarah. And she kind of gave us the idea to kind of like push the Patreon. She got the idea more she was the cattle prod that we needed to get that kind of going. So shout out to Sarah for sure. And that's a great bolo. Yeah. Picking up the ash can from Scout Comics. We talk about the value of these small press publishers' actual web stores. They want them. They struggle to make money off the printing of comics. James Hake told us the goal is to break even at best. Your money, again, is with your adaptation. So, the opportunity to sell direct, they love that. And that's your best opportunity to get in. So great job, Sarah. That's a great bolo. This book I did not read. So I want to force my man Brian to go ahead and throw a little, because I know he read this book. So I know he can give us one of his classic Simpleman's reviews.
I'm gonna kiss and keep it simple, stupid, because a little background on this. We just last week filmed an interview with James Hake, president of Scout Comics, which will premiere on Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern for those that are interested in watching that. But we talked about it with James. He was talking about Category 0, and then I thought maybe James had reached out to him, but the author, Adam, I'm not going to kill his last name because I do that all the time, but he reached out to me, said, hey, I have a advanced copy. Would you mind looking at it and reviewing it? And I thought they had talked. I read it. I enjoyed it. I'm just going to keep it simple and say, hey, if you're a fan of X-Men and those type books, you're going to like this one because there's a mutant gene that only affects a certain amount of people, and then when it does affect them, they start getting different abilities. And like I said, bad job of talking this book up, but it is a great read. So if you're interested in X-Men type books, especially from an indie point of view, definitely pick it up and give it a read. Or read it digitally, or find someone that you can get you a copy of. Just walk into the comic book store and kind of flip through it real quick and see if it's something you're interested in. I enjoyed reading it, and I'm going to recommend it to other people. But
and so that's coming from a guy who's not I don't want to say not a big Scout fan, but he has said previously that wasn't a publisher he read a lot of books by. So I think that's a pretty glowing review for a guy who doesn't read Scout books and checked it out, loved it.
Yes, I'll tell you. I'll come out and tell you I'm not a big Scout. I won't say I'm not a Scout fan, but it's one of the ones that I didn't pay much attention to until after having that conversation with James. Some of the books are definitely on my radar.
And that's one of the reasons why I love that show, and I encourage everybody. I know that's not one of our, say, biggest shows views-wise, but there's so much nuggets of spec value on those shows, and they're only going to get bigger. I'm going to tell you guys straight up, I'll go ahead and leak this. We have so many of these people trying to reach out to us after filming the first show to do a second episode, the pre or post San Diego Comic-Con, with all the good info you want to know. So be on the lookout, because there's going to be some coming from the Spotlight show that's going to be incredibly valuable. But I agree with Brian that doing that show, we've gotten an opportunity to talk to these kind of creators and publishers, and the insight that we've gotten. I've walked away from every episode buying more books, looking for more books from these publishers. So I think you guys will get the same feel and vibe. And you can kind of tell the real from the fake right off the bat.
Right. Yeah. So didn't read a lot of Scout, and then X-Men's usually not my thing, but I definitely enjoyed this. I enjoyed their take on this whole kind of mutation type ability. But rolling right in through the reader buzz. This was a big issue this week that a lot of people, spoilers were out there before release day, so people that saw that kind of knew. But Walking Dead number 192, right, Jack?
Right. So, okay. I'm going to do something right now that a lot of the speculators are too big of cowards to do. And I'm going to go ahead and admit that I was 100% wrong. I was just 100% wrong. I got on the mic here on this channel about a month ago and was extremely salty and pessimistic about Robert Kirkman's actually pulling off what he was trying to tease. Of course, the death of Rick. And again, like Brian said, spoilers are everywhere. So, and I think again, Bolo Nation has let us know they want to hear the spoilers. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about it. But yeah, so that scene at the end that we talked about, the end of 191, where seemingly Rick got shot. But my argument was, well, we see the blood, but we don't know. And I thought he was gonna swerve that way. And instead, he did a double swerve. If you're a wrestling fan, you know about that double turn. So instead of it just being that, oh, did he get shot or did he not get shot? Oh, he got shot, then gets zombified, and then poor Carl has to be the one at the end to put him down, which obviously is an emotional thing. How does it play into the show? It kind of won't, because Carl's already dead, obviously. It's kind of an homage to maybe, how it kind of went the other way around to an extent, although I think it was shown. But so I don't really know long-term value. This is a reader buzz value book. I kind of had inklings that something huge was going to happen when they put the blank cover out. And then Brian is now showing the newly solicited second print, which I think has a good chance. It's going to be ordered by everybody. It's going to be everywhere. But I think it's got a good chance for some staying power. Because Rick is an iconic character in independent comics history. He's an iconic character in television history. And I think this would be a great book to get signed by Andrew Lincoln, the star of The Walking Dead, who played Rick. This would be an amazing signature series book there. And I think that it's a book I'm going to order. I'll tell you right now, I'm going to order copies of this. And I don't expect it to be a short-term moneymaker. But I do expect it to be an important book that people will want for a long time. So, yeah, Walking Dead 192.
Yeah.
They delivered on the expectations, I think.
I just don't like how they put James Harden on the cover of it. I keep calling this the James Harden cover. But
Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, it's maybe not the best depiction of him they could have chose, but I like the fact they tried to use that black and white interior art
yeah,
for the cover. I get the idea of it, like, because it's not the death of Rick. Obviously, Rick exists on TV in the movies. He just signed a huge Andrew Lincoln just signed a huge movie contract, but it's the death of two-dimensional paper Rick.
right. He was only 16. He was only 16 years old. He's had the
It's
dates.
funny. That's the first thing I thought when I saw that cover was Rick wasn't even legal.
Yeah. It's one of them kids that full grown beard and stuff at 8.
Right. He must have had a kid at 2.
Yeah. So next on the Reader Buzz, this is one I picked up. I haven't had a chance to read yet, but it really sounded interesting to me, and that's another new ongoing series from Image, Thumbs #1.
Yeah, this one. Again, I'm gonna go ahead and talk again about adaptability, and kind of a term that I think we're gonna end up throwing out a lot is an adaptable concept. An adaptable concept is something that, you know, I think when you're evaluating indie comics is something that becomes essential. And if you all you have to do is read the solicit. And in the solicit, it talks about, you know, like a Mark Zuckerberg-like character. So, you know, you're talking about an extremely rich, extremely tech-savvy young person. What if they were to create this army of similar type young, tech-savvy, kind of hacker types, and they were going to disrupt the world? You're talking about having the money, having the power, and then again, technology runs our country. So obviously, you hear that and you go, well, that's a movie. I could see that. I could totally see that as a movie. So Sean Lewis, also the writer, has done a heck of a job promoting this book. He's another guy. We like to talk about people and give shout outs and credits to indie creators who do a great job of this because, again, indie comics from a print level is a break-even business, and a lot of times just to do that, these guys have to work their butt off. And Sean Lewis has really put this book out there on Instagram. He's done some cool stuff really to promote it. So I want to say shout out to him because the book was almost immediately limited at Midtown, which I think put it on a lot of radars of speculators. But again, you got to watch out with that because that's a Midtown algorithm thing. That doesn't necessarily mean, you know, we're running out of print on it. But for a long-term investment, I do like this book. I haven't read it yet. So to tell you like how much I like it, I don't know. Just on premise, though, I like it.
Right. And then Carl Garcia's Hayden Sherman art on Thumbs. He's also the art for Wasted Space. Love me some Wasted Space, so definitely worth picking up for the art if you're a fan of Hayden Sherman. Oh, you were talking about Midtown. That's what I wanted to talk about. Midtown I'm kind of shying away from because they're going from being a retailer now. They're like the people that you take books up to the counter and then they go, I got to check eBay. If you notice their books now, they're listing their books a lot higher than like their speculator prices now.
Right. Gone is the Midtown being the basis. When I first got into speculating on comics, a lot of retailers were, when you would go to buy incentives the day of release, would be like, well, let me check and see what Midtown's selling them for. And whatever Midtown was pricing it at, that's what they were pricing it at. Which was pretty fair because for the most part, Midtown was basically ratio minus 10 or 15%. And Brian's hit the nail on the head. Now, anytime there's a J. Scott book, anytime there's a book, they're taking it on the head. And we saw that from another person who... another company who Brian has talked about, which is a DCBS, Discount Comic Book Service, who will also straight up cancel your order.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, you'll feel good about pre-ordering some hot books and then all of a sudden your order will not show up. So also we want to send a shout out to Mel V from the Mighty Mel V YouTube channel, Unpressable Defects podcast, and, you know, comicsheatingup.net, who also appears right here on the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel with the Hot and Cold show every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. And he is a regular Midtown Live shopper. He is first in line. He often says, if you are going to work harder than him as a speculator, bring it. Because he's up there 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. He's in line, ready for new comic book. There's nobody that out-hustles him in New York City. And He'll tell you straight up that Midtown has changed, and that's from a like live person perspective. And I asked him, I don't know whether it's management, whether they have different management there, but there's a kind of a dislike for speculators within them. And I've also had another speculator. I'm not going to shout him out by name. He also has been on the hot and cold list, but I don't want to. He told me this. I don't know whether he would want this repeated, but he's had several orders canceled from Midtown, ordering like 25 of a book at a time, their maximum, and he'll order like 100 of a book and then have all of the books canceled. So, and you can feel some sort of way about somebody trying to order 100 copies of a book, but again, you also got to realize Midtown gets thousands. So, and when it comes to Marvel, Midtown is a distributor, so they can get access to books they don't even have in stock as long as they're in stock at Diamond, in stock at Marvel. So, don't feel that. But yeah, Midtown's, as speculators, Midtown is becoming a less and less valuable a resource. The only thing that they're not paying attention to, again, is those off-brand plays, those IDW spec plays, those Boom spec plays. They're still pretty fair in pricing for that. But I would rather order from TFAW. It's just annoying with TFAW being on the East Coast. I know I'm not getting my package for like 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and there was I think someone posted in the Facebook group that they were selling Naomi #4 for like $25. Midtown was, which is crazy.
I love Emiliano in the chat who says Bolo Mel's rivals now know when to get to Midtown before he does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, watch out, New York City.
Yeah.
Melville just show up an hour earlier.
Yep. His little lawn chair.
Yep.
But sleeping on a grate.
And shout out to Emiliano. You guys need to check out cbsiswag.com. Brand new t-shirts. I got my Transformers t-shirt on right now, so I'm sporting that 80s vibe. And they've got that brand new glow-in-the-dark Skeletor shirt that is out of this world, and a brand new CBSI G.I. Joe shirt, which, for me as a G.I. Joe fanatic, there's nothing cooler than that. Brian is Mr. Masters of the Universe. I love G.I. Joe. So for us, this is the perfect new pack. There's also a real cool CBGB's kind of homage with a CBSI logo that you should check out. I think it's definitely dope. Great summer convention shirt. So head to cbsiswag.com and check out those new designs. And remember, a lot of those convention designs from last year, they're gone now. You can't get those anymore. Those are limited editions. Those are back issues at this point, boys. So get on that stuff now while those kind of graphics and designs are still available.
Yep. And with that, we're going to roll right into the Reader Buzz section some more, and we got the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle 3, issue number 2.
And I haven't read this one yet, but this is, again, we talked about issue number 1, and we talked about it wasn't my long-term play of the week, but I kind of wished it was, because even as we were talking about it, I felt better and better about it. Because, again, I really liked reading it. I really enjoyed the way they brought in those new characters, those kind of combined universe characters. And I'm going to go ahead and spoil something here right now. So if you don't want to hear spoilers about the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, about the post-credit scene, then go ahead and hit mute for a minute, because we're going to go ahead and go into that. But in the post-credit scene, what is it? I don't know if it's a Shredder. I think it's, Shredder gets knocked into some sort of kind of like that similar to Joker and kind of comes out Jokerized. So the Laughing Man appears in the post-credit scene. So I was on this channel talking about the value of issue number 1 and why people should get on it because of the long-term play of Laughing Man. If the movie did well and it went to a sequel, they already set it up in the post-credit scene, which means for sure in the sequel, Laughing Man will be featured. And that tells me also, again, that Bebop and Rocksteady characters will be featured, some of those other amalgam characters, and again, the Turtles themselves. And so issue number 2 has a good chance of bringing in some new first appearances. I haven't checked it out yet, and it's flying completely under the radar. I haven't seen any kind of spec sites or apps talk about it. So I'm interested to get this one in and read. This is one of those ones that it's tough we go live on Thursdays. Sometimes I haven't gotten a chance to read a book yet, but it's one that I've got my eye on. Again, if anybody's reading this one in the chat, let us know. Let us know what you thought, if you saw any new first appearances that didn't show up in the first issue. But, this is definitely one to keep an eye out for. And again, be on the lookout for issue 1, because I know it's still sitting available at major retailers like, again, Midtown Comics. It's probably sitting at your LCS. Again, there's no incentive. It's just cover A, cover B. Be on the lookout, especially for that cover B Eastman cover. And I think that there's a lot of long-term value there.
Right. I'll also say if you're a fan of like the cover A's and the Frankie Williams art, Frankie Williams' website, he's always selling the original covers and interior pages, and they go for pretty cheap. I'm talking like interior pages. Some of them get for like $80. He's got like concept sketches he's done. So if you're a fan of that art, definitely check him out. Just Google his name, and his website will go up, and you can get original art from him for fairly cheap. He's done.
He's real nice. He's real nice too. If you meet him at a con, he's a great guy to talk to.
Yeah, because I was late. I was trying to get some of the Castle Grayskull from the He-Man Thundercats and stuff like that. But yeah. So the next on the Reader Buzz list is Justice League 25. We kind of already talked about that, so I'm just gonna go right into Savage Avengers number 2. And
yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you saying?
No. I got caught up in the chat. Did you guys like the first 2 series? I did like the first 2 series of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Batman. Great reads. I enjoyed it, especially if you're a fan of Ninja Turtles and Batman. There's nothing like over the world about it, but I enjoyed it and it was fun reads. I have both of them in single issue floppies.
Yeah, I agree. There were series I enjoyed reading, and I didn't put a lot of spec value in them. And then when that movie got announced, it kind of threw me off. But again, I think Into the Spider-Verse changes everything. I think a lot of animation stuff is in play more. So it's something to be on the lookout for.
No, you go. They're talking to me, him, me, me. It's like not at the Roxbury over here.
Right. Well, that's one of the tough things about live is if you go back and watch like our first few episodes, we did that a lot. We just step on each other's toes all the time. And now we've gotten a better flow of knowing when each other is going to speak. But yeah, that was always tough when you go live. Yeah, it gets 10 times tougher on the Indie Spotlight Series show when we add another person and then a guest. But yeah, so Savage Avengers number 2. This is another one where I think a lot of people would talk about possibly first appearance. I know there's something's venomized. There's a venomized weapon in this one. I haven't checked this one out yet. But it had some solid reader buzz. This is the last book I added to the list. This was a last second edition that I started to see more and more people. It seems like if you put something venomized in a book, it's going to get attention. I think it's funny because ever since managing social media for comicbookinvest.com, anytime we post anything about Venom, it gets more interaction and impressions than anything else. So I think this could be a symptom of a little bit of that because Savage Avengers number 1 we didn't get the greatest reviews from that. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know long-term value, if there's long-term value here or not, but people love that Venom stuff. So let us know in the chat what you guys think.
I like the regular cover on that. Does David Finch cover the cover?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like David Finch just because I'm an X-Men guy. So those X-Men Finch covers, every time I see his art, that always brings that back up to me.
Right, and the Batman covers, Moon Knight covers, you can definitely tell his work stands out from some of those. And that's gonna wrap up the Reader Buzz section for tonight. Man, we're in the trenches tonight, but
we are. But shout out to the 72 people watching us live. We appreciate you guys.
Yes,
especially those people who are rolling in late. We've had a lot of that, and those people who have been here. No, especially those people who have been here the whole time through my multiple dropouts and audio issues and coming on 10 minutes late. So we appreciate you guys.
Yes, and we're not gonna keep you up too much longer. We are gonna go right into the Variant Buzz section this week, and pretty heavy variants, right? I think those are probably the highlights of the week.
Yeah, definitely.
And we'll go right into it. And talking right off the bat, we got Deceased number 2. We have the Francesco Mattina variant, and then the Yasmin Putri horror homage cover.
Yeah, and I think this went basically the same way as Deceased #1. They're on this list because they get a lot of buzz. People post about these two covers constantly, so people love these two covers. It's not that people don't like these covers. I think they're both extremely popular. I just think it's one of those things people saw it coming a mile away. Retailers heavily ordered them. They're extremely accessible. You can kind of copy and paste what Brian and I talked about for the first one in here, because it's really the same thing. At the end of the day, this is a long-term play. You're playing a long game with these books, because I don't think this is going to carry reader buzz. Issue #1 kind of fell flat with most readers. I did hear more and more people as time went on saying they liked it, but it just didn't have like the buzz Batman Damned did when it came out. But Brian and I are kind of split in different camps. Brian likes the Matina zombie variants. I like the Putri horror homage variants. I will admit I like issue #1, the homage for issue #1, more than I like #2. And #3 is the Nun homage. I don't really love that one as much either. I think it is more iconic. I think issue #3, the one to look out for, is that Wonder Woman zombie variant. I think that one has a chance to do very well. But yeah, so I think this is a long-term play. This is definitely not one you want to be grabbing onto, hoping for that immediate quick flip, because people are all over it. But keep an eye out for like issue 3 in the series, because as stores didn't do as well with issue 1 as they had hoped, they may have more issue 2 and issue 3 sitting in stock, or they may have lowered their orders. But again, you know what the biggest thing is you're just getting so many store variants produced for these books. Yeah, so you're getting an abundance of orders.
That was what I was going to say as I just smacked my lips in the microphone. But there's a lot of store variants that I think kind of drown some of it out. But yeah, I'm a fan of the Matina. Huge fan of Nightmare on Elm Street, so I do like the homage. But for me with this one, I just like that Matina's Superman. But and this next one is probably one of my favorite covers of this week, and that is the Adi Granov. Not a big fan of the Captain Marvel comic, but I am an Adi Granov fan. So
right.
I said if I could find the Virgin variant for cheap, I'd pick it up. I did not, so I did not get it, but I'm not heartbroken over it. But I did love this cover.
Yeah, this might be my favorite one of the week. Either way, my favorite cover this week comes from Adi Granov. It's just about which one of the two it is. Again, I've talked about this on the show before. I am not a fan of doing a trade dress and then doing a Virgin. I just think it just devalues the trade dress version of a book altogether. I especially don't like when they're done by store variant companies, but we'll talk about that later. But it's one of those things. I love this cover. It depicts Captain Marvel and Black Widow. I think there's a good chance that we could see Captain Marvel and Black Widow together in a movie at some point, especially since people are saying that the Black Widow movie is going to be a prequel. Captain Marvel was kind of predominant in the 90s, so this could be a cover that becomes a classic. Either way, it's just great art. For these variants, though, to hold the test of time, that's always tough. As far as a long-term speculation, I don't know. I don't know that. That's always tough, because Adi Granov is one of those guys. He's so good. He puts out great art all the time. So things can kind of get lost in the shuffle. But Captain Marvel variants have been performing extremely well ever since that movie came out. I think her stock as a character has greatly risen from that kind of like C+ level to that B+ level, where one more great movie and she could be an A player.
Right. And of course, next, this is probably one of the bigger books of the week that people were talking about. A bunch of different covers for it. And that, of course, we're not having all of them here. We just have the Black Cat, the Virgin Art Germ, and the Virgin J. Scott Campbell variant.
Right. So, yeah, again, this is a series I don't love, if I'm being honest. Because this is a Marvel series to me. It's just, let's take a cover, let's take a character who we obviously see collectors are buying variant covers featuring her. So let's create a series, in my opinion, for no other reason, so that we can create 4,000 variants and 4,000 store variants and sell the heck out of those to collectors who want the best cleavage shot of Black Cat. Again, I'm sorry to be disrespectful, but that's kind of how I feel like the marketing is on these books. I don't hear people talking about the story. I don't hear people demanding the story. I am all for these female-driven books, but this one to me is a variant cash grab. It was from the beginning. Look at the sheer number of J. Scott Campbell variants. They had him doing variants for like 8 different stores. So, and again, it's when you're a store and you get an opportunity to do a Black Cat variant, it seems like a no-brainer because you know Black Cat variants sell. But at the same point, you're also going to know that everybody's going to think that. So, I don't know. I like the 1 in 500, the J. Scott variant. I don't know how many of those will really exist, but it's one of those things. Every retailer who does a variant is going to get at least 6. I really love the Art Germ cover. I actually like that video game incentive that I think is like a 1 in 10 incentive. I think it's a nice cover and it kind of flies under the radar. And I saw a lot of stores only charging cover price for it. So that's one of those books that I think could like slide under the radar and then kind of not get picked up. Because if you're a store and you're doing a say a variant and you get 3, you could buy 300 of those. Not every store is going to do that. But I think that those have a good chance of doing pretty well, at least getting over cover price. But yeah, I would love to hear in the chat if anybody read Black Cat. I thought it was great. I do think we talked about this on the Hot and Cold show. I do think there's meat on the bones with Black Cat, but I think you're better off investing your money in first appearance of Black Cat way before you are putting your money into these variants, because I just think when Black Cat pops, it'll be when she shows up in a movie, and if the right actress portrays her, it could be big money. It absolutely could be big money. I think this Spider-Man series is gold. But for that to happen, when that happens, it's going to be the first appearance everybody runs to. It's not going to be these incentives. And again, these incentives are everywhere. So always be weary of incentive variants when you see a ton of store variants for said book. But again, I hate to be negative on this one, but this was a book that kind of from the get-go, I was like, I didn't even order the open order variants in the regular books for myself to speculate, to resell, because I don't want to play that in that huge competition game of every store that's doing a variant and everybody who's trying to make money on this book. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, I put in the Wednesday Warriors article that the over-under on this book being canceled at 12 issues.
Exactly.
And like you said, because the art's good doesn't mean you should make her an ongoing series of her own character. That's like saying Rob Schneider should be a lead actor in his movies. Outside of Deuce Bigelow, because those were good movies, but yeah. Anything else?
Well, I think it's all about the writer's idea. If Donny Cates, and I'm just using him as an example, you can come up with anybody, any great writer, had an idea and was like, I have this great idea for a Black Cat story that I think would be amazing. I'm all in. I'll read a Black Cat story. But this series from the get-go wasn't marketed that way.
Yeah.
I can't tell you who wrote this book. Maybe I should know that. But it hasn't been something that's been talked about a lot. Instead, all you ever hear about is the variant covers. That is clearly the way Marvel wanted to market this. That's clearly the way Diamond marketed it. And that's clearly the way comic book stores have marketed this series.
Yeah.
So books don't retain value just on cover alone. And we see people in the chat saying that they did not enjoy it, to put it mildly. So
what you're going to see is, say, February of 2021, you're going to see Black Cat Volume 5, Number 1, because they're going to reboot it that many times between
right.
it.
Because they're going to make money on this one. That's why the series is going to get canceled, like Brian said early. Because by issue 4 and 5, there'll be no money in it. But see, this is where you got to watch out, because they've already put out the solicit for 2, and there's more high-end ratio variants that are hot. They're awesome. Great artists. So that's what they're going to do with this entire series. They're going to see these ratios you believe you need to have for FOMO, but you don't. So this to me was a hard pass. I just didn't want to get involved in this one. And also, I think you will see the regular cover in dollar bins at conventions this summer from stores who ordered a bunch trying to get those ratios.
Yep. So, but enough about that. Let's move into the better cover of the week, and that was that Deadpool 13, the other Adigonov cover that they just totally took the win from its sales by doing a store exclusive Virgin variant.
Yep. So this is the grinding our gears section of the show because sorry, don't love the Black Cat book, and we absolutely love this variant, but hate what happened to it. And Marvel's got to stop doing this because they're being short-sighted. Yeah, I'm sure they got 3,000 sales, and I'm not. I want to be really clear. I think Unknown Comics did this. I'm not trying to like down talk Unknown Comics. I've spoken to the guys at Unknown Comics at HeroesCon before. I actually think they do good business, but they're an example of a store, a retailer that's driven by retailer exclusive variants. And what ends up happening, and when a lot of these companies are driven by that, they're always looking to produce that next book that they think is going to be popular. And I don't blame them. I blame Marvel because they're business. They're just trying to make money. And I get Marvel's trying to make money too, but I just think it's short-sighted. To sell those 3,000 copies to that one customer, they make this book no longer valuable. And you may say, well, what does Marvel care about secondary market values? Well, it's not just about how that affects this book. It's how it affects the buyer's perceptions of these books as a whole, which then affect future sales of any other Marvel cover B. And that's long-term planning. That's when you're sitting down as a sales team trying to strategize. You can make way more money for Marvel if they can make these cover Bs actually be something the way DC has, versus anytime there's a good one, well, we'll just any number of 1, 2, or 3 retailers who love to produce these virgin covers. They go right to that. And again, to me, that's low-hanging fruit. It's one thing if you produce a store variant and then you create a virgin version of your store variant. I don't even care if you do it with an indie publisher, because you know what? Indie publishers need love. They're not getting, again, we talked about this, indie publishers on print comics, they're barely breaking even. So you want to do that with an indie publisher and you want to help promote an indie book, go for it. But if you're doing it as a cash grab with a Marvel book, it's unfortunate because, again, this is a book that would have been a great opportunity because for one LCS to make money, you're hurting so many other LCSs, because this would have been a great book for LCSs to be able to put out for cover price and sell the heck out of on release day. It used to be, we were talking about these books getting marked up to $10, $12. Don't ever pay that on release day, but buy those books for cover price. But yeah, you're not going to see that. But that, to me, that was my favorite cover art of the week. That or the Captain Marvel, but probably that one. But yeah, just hate to see what Marvel's doing to their own stuff. And I know that their answer would be profits, but I think they're looking short-term profits over long-term profits. And nothing equals more profits than the health of the hobby and the health of the LCS, and they're burning that. And it shouldn't be a speculator being the one to tell them that.
Right. So that kind of wraps up the Deadpool 13, and we're going to go right into the next one on the variant buzz list, and that's New Agents of Atlas number 3. You didn't get as big of a buzz, or I haven't heard as big of a buzz this week as you had the previous issues. What about you, Jack? Did you hear more about this, or?
No, there was definitely buzz because of what the previous 2 did. But it didn't have nearly the same buzz. And I think it's just because there wasn't a first appearance. Now, having said that, you can see the cover art right on the screen. It's not as appealing as the first 2 variants. It is what it is. So this book is trading for like 35, 30, which is right what I'd expect it to go for. Above ratio. But it's not going to like blow ratio out by any margin, because again, it's not a first appearance like the first 2 were. It's not a stunning cover art variant. So I think there's a lot of attention on New Agents of Atlas. I would absolutely say I don't think you'll lose money buying it at ratio. Do I think you have a chance of making a little bit of money? Sure. Do I think you'll make a lot of money? Probably not. But I think it's a fair buy at ratio. But yeah, so, definitely buzz dwindling on the series, but the buzz is still extremely strong for those first 2 issues. People are still buying those up from a spec perspective.
Right. And then, of course, wrapping up variant buzz this week, we got the Marvel Team Up number 3, right? This is the variant for that.
Right, and before we get into that, Matt Dungy in the chat just said, did he see that they're restarting the series? Well, the series was a mini-series as a War of Realms tie-in. So that's why the series is actually called War of Realms: New Agents of Atlas. Now what's going to happen is, because of its popularity, it's going to be its own ongoing series for New Agents of Atlas.
Right.
So that's what's coming out next.
And then each of the characters are getting like their own one shot, their own or series or mini series.
Right. Arrow and Swordmaster, they've already solicited their own series. Definitely be on the lookout for those incentives, because I expect those to be hot as well. Right. But yeah, this cover right here that's on the screen right now, Comics Presents #3. I think it's volume 4. This right here depicts that famous Spider-Man No More cover, where Spider-Man drops the suit in the trash can and walks out in the alley. And what you may not realize about this cover is it's just depicting it from another angle. You can see the suit in the trash can. It is kind of from deep in the alley. This is done by Marcos Martin. This was an open order incentive. And this is another variant that I really like. I think is a kind of cool concept for a variant to take, almost like an homage, but kind of add on to it. To take a cover that was iconic and did very, very well, still in incredible demand with collectors, and then to kind of give a new school variant cover, where you kind of get a different view of that cover. So I think it's very cool. I haven't seen a whole lot of secondary market success, but this is a book that I don't think a lot of people are aware of at the same point.
Right. So we had some Matrix audio for a minute there, but so with that's gonna wrap up the variant buzz section for this week, and we're gonna roll. You ready to roll into your long-term play, Jack?
I'm ready to do it.
All right. So we're going to bring up Jack's long-term play for this week, and we are talking about Ignited #1, right?
Correct. So we're going to talk about Ignited #1 from the brand new H1 line from Humanoids. If you're not familiar with Humanoids, I'll give you a quick little backstory. It's a company that came out of France. It started in the 70s, I believe, 1974, 1975. So you're looking at a 40-year publishing history. One of the 4 original founders you may actually be familiar with. One name, he goes by Mobius, and new collectors may be familiar with him because he did those remastered variants with Marvel that had, I think there was a Spider-Man one for, I want to say, Amazing Spider-Man 800 or something of that. $7.99, something like that. But he did a few of those remastered variants from featured classic art. But he was one of the founders. In 1998, the publisher opened a Los Angeles office with the hopes of getting into, obviously, developing American-based comic series. And recently, within this year, they've relaunched this new line, H1 Humanoids. And it's a kind of new school, new approach, kind of new universe being laid out. And they've got some big names involved. One of the creative directors involved is John Cassidy, who is an artist. He did the 1 in 10 incentive variant that you can see on the right side, the white cover. And you may recognize his name from doing a lot of Star Wars stuff. He's done a ton of Star Wars variants, very popular within that community. And Mark Waid is a creative director in the series. And obviously Mark Waid, very popular for his Flash run, very popular with Daredevil. He's got a long history, still does a lot with Marvel Comics. Now, this series and this line has been controversial. There was actually some news today about it with reports on Bleeding Cool about a dispute between a famous retailer named Dennis Berger and Mark Waid over whether or not Dennis should carry the comics. And, I'm not going to get into all that drama. Check out that article if you want to. But the point is that the publisher has been heavily in the news since they've announced this relaunch. Now, I will be transparent and say a lot of the discussion surrounding the relaunch has been very political. And Brian and I have a strong opinion that that's just not what we're here to do. We're here to talk about comics. My personal political beliefs, Brian's personal political beliefs are kind of irrelevant because we're here to talk about speculation and how we can make you money and how we can add to your collection. And so I've read some reviews of this book that weren't great. And I kind of dismiss a lot of them because they tend to use terms like SJW and things like that. And again, I don't want to get into that in a whole lot of detail, but when I read those kind of terms, it turns me off because it tells me that you're reading this book from a political standpoint. You're reading this book imparting your own political beliefs. I watch a lot of movies, read a lot of books where I don't necessarily agree with what the writer is trying to tell or the protagonist, and you can still enjoy it. I can enjoy a conservative-based book or a liberal-based book. It doesn't matter. But if we want to talk purely money, if you're saying that it's SJW, well, again, Hollywood is liberal, and look at where these movies are. So just looking at it from a perspective, that's not a bad thing for us, for our money, for speculation purposes. Diversity in comics is popular. We saw it on the debut of the Hot and Cold show, and that's what this new series is about. It's about inclusion and diversity, and including a lot of different genders, sexual orientations, different ethnicities that haven't been represented in comics. And in the marketing of this comic, they've put out a lot of marketing based around that, and less marketing based around the writer and the artist, which has drawn the ire of some of the kind of Comicsgate conservative crowd who have been heavy to criticize the book on Twitter. But again, either way, you're getting buzz for the book. It's being talked about. I advocated the H1 sampler on Free Comic Book Day. It was a book on the Bolo Free Comic Book Day list. And the reason why I put it on the list, and the reason why I still see it as valuable, even though it wasn't one that was on a lot of people's radar, is again, it highlighted several of these new series coming up from H1. And these series is, again, all the first appearances are going to be in that Free Comic Book Day sampler, all the key ones. And that, again, book's available for free. And I think that this imprint has a chance of being successful because of the names attached. I think Mark Waid, John Cassidy bring a certain cachet within the industry. You can get into politics and waste your time with all of that, but I think that they bring a reputation that will help. The independent comics game is all about adaptability of content. How adaptable is this concept? And again, you look at this, we talked about it last week. These movie companies, these studios, these streaming services, they are looking for superhero-related content. Everybody wants in on this comic content game. So content is being bought up at an extremely fast pace. And the easiest to get into is these independent publishers, to get into these creator-owned books. So because this publisher has a long track record, 40-year history, they know how to put out books, they know how to make money. This is a big part of their American expansion. It may be kind of 20 years in the making, but here they are, and they've got some heavyweights behind them. They're telling stories that I think can connect with a wide range audience, even if there are some detractors of their types of stories. Please remember the current Star Wars movies get those kinds of detractors talking about them. I haven't read the books yet, so it'll be interesting to see when I read it. I did pre-order these books because, again, I look for opportunity where others may kind of shy away from it. I don't think these books will be heavily printed. I think the incentives will have the best chance of popping off. If an Ignited movie gets announced, if tomorrow they announce that Paramount Pictures has bought the H1 universe and Ignited is going to be the first movie, that John Cassidy variant would be the one to get, that incentive on the right. But this, to me, is a low buy-in, low-risk spec play because you get the opportunity to get in with a publisher on the ground floor. And for those reasons, it's a great long-term play. I think, again, Mark Waid, John Cassidy behind the brand, a new brand in the new age of comics where everything gets adapted, and these concepts are highly adaptable, and adaptable content is what it's all about today, if you're talking from a speculation perspective. If you're talking about how to make money in comics, that's what you're looking for. So I would keep an eye out for these releases, keep an eye out for that incentive. And again, the fact that certain comic book stores didn't want to carry these releases for political reasons only helps the scarcity. So that doesn't scare me or shy me away. And I'm excuse me, I'm here for comics and I'm here to make money. And I don't really care about the politics of the comic book or the creators. So if you're here for those reasons, if that's what you're into, I would say be on the lookout for this series. Check this out. And if you've read the series, if you've checked out the first issue, if you checked out the Free Comic Book Day issue, let us know in the chat what you thought.
right. And that is going to be Jack's long-term play for the week. Like he said, if you guys read this comic, let us know in the comments what you thought about it. This wasn't on my radar. I'm going to probably pick it up, give it a read. I love Mark Waid as writer. I think his Daredevil run was one of my favorites, but I'm liking Chip Zdarsky's actually better now, so we'll go with that. And with that being said, that kind of wraps up the Bolo list for this week. Definitely appreciate everyone's patience with us tonight with some technical issues off and on, but we also want to reiterate, this Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to premiere that interview with James Hake from Scout Comics, and then also June 17th at 9 p.m. is where we're going to premiere the interview with Adrian and Damian Wassel from Vault Comics. And there's a lot of good information in both of those. So make sure you are subscribed so you get notified when those videos do premiere. And if you guys are looking for comic displays to display your comic books on the wall, I just did a review for a collector mount. That is on my channel as well. Cheap, I'm talking they're $5 to $6, very affordable. Great way to display your comics in your comic book room. But that video is up on my channel now if you would like to see that as well. Jack, do you have anything you want to say before we go?
Yeah, just again, thank you to everybody in the chat. We had a great chat again. Again, I know Brian stresses about those technical issues and they suck, and we'll get them corrected. But you know, again, everybody rocked with us. Everybody was great in the chat. It was another great week talking about comics. Love hearing you guys' opinions. Definitely appreciate it. And again, be on the lookout for new content. I know we've been talking about it a lot, but next weekend is Heroes Con. So we are going to be in the building at Heroes Con. Unfortunately, our fearless leader, Brian, will not be with us, but myself, Andy Tomerlin, and Mike Morello. If you've been watching the Hot and Cold show, that's Mike Morello's show. So I'm excited to have him in the building for Heroes Con, as well as the guys from Forgotten 5 Comics. If you're going to be in Heroes Con, if you're going to be in Charlotte, Carolina, be sure to reach out to us, man. Hit us up on social media. Let us know. We'd love to link up with you, take some pictures for social media. Also, let you know the Forgotten 5 Comics guys, some CBSI guys, they're going to have the best moderns you've ever seen at a convention, at this convention. These guys they're CBSI guys, so they're in touch with the market. So you definitely want to check that out. Also, they're going to be debuting those awesome 80s swag, CBSI swag t-shirts at Heroes Con. So be sure to check that out. Definitely want to be on the lookout for more content coming to the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel. And again, not to be long-winded, but check out that Patreon. It's a work in progress. We got tons of content coming, and we want you guys, our regular Bolo Nation people, to be Patreons. Again, even if you're on the dollar level, just so you can interact and communicate with us. Let us know what you want from that. Let us know what we can deliver to you, and we want to bring you value. You know, we're looking to foster that community. That's not really a huge for-profit thing, and all the money that we make ends up going back into the channel anyway. Come on, guys, we got to fix my internet. We got to get this thing right. So, can't have Brian. Brian's gonna curse everyone out, starting with me, on the channel one night live. So yeah, that's my Patreon plug. Check us out. We're gonna be working on those Bolo boxes. So and let us know. I was pitching to Brian an indie spotlight box. Let us know if that's something you'd be interested in.
Yeah, and then Matt Dungy and Caroline and Chris are talking about Baltimore. I actually have my CBSI Baltimore Comic Con shirt on right now, so definitely be at Baltimore this year. Looking forward to that.
And I will be in Baltimore as well.
So we should have some good content there. And since we'll both be there, maybe we can get on some good internet. But yeah,
that may be the crispiest Bolo show live. We'll talk about from a hotel. It's the best we've ever done.
Yeah, but definitely, thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for bearing with us, and appreciate your patience. And we will be live again next week for another episode of the Bolo Show, Thursday night, 9 p.m. Oh my God. Rough night. You guys have a good night.